Hi there, welcome to What Series 14 and number 45. We're getting through Genesis towards the end, and we're up to Genesis 21. This talks about the birth of Isaac and God fulfilling his promise to Abraham and to Sarah. It says, "And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had spoken." Notice it said, the Lord visited Sarah as he had said. It took a long time. It took 25 years for the promise to come to pass, but God was faithful to his promise. That's a bit tricky, isn't it, when it's 25 years? But God's promises never fail, but we still get frustrated with them sometimes. And as he has spoken, sort of gives us the idea the promise of a son wasn't fulfilled because Abraham was perfect or in his obedience or anything like that, but because God was faithful to his word. Some of the promises of God are conditional and depend on something we must do. Other promises of God are unconditional, and God will fulfill them not because of what we do, but because of who he is. It goes on over the next few verses. "For Sarah conceived and bore Abram a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him and whom Sarah bore to him, Isaac. Then Abraham circumcised his son, Isaac, when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Now Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born. And Sarah said, 'God has made me laugh, and all who hear will laugh with me.' She also said, 'Who would have said to Abram that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age.'" Numbers of things here, a heap of things here for us to look at. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him. Big words there. That means all of the prophecy came together. They called him Isaac. Originally, the name Isaac was meant as something of rebuke because of the laughter of Abraham and Sarah, because of what the word actually means. But God turned the gentle rebuke into an occasion for joy. How often does God do that? Isaac became a wonderful type or picture of the Messiah to come, Jesus Christ. Both were especially promised sons. Both conceptions were miraculous. Both were born after a period of delay, when you think of it that way too. And both mothers were given the assurance by the truth of God's power. Wow. It's interesting when you put the two together, isn't it? But both were also given names rich in meaning before they were born. Both births occurred at God's appointed time. And that's something that we need to take hold of as well. As well as that, both births were accompanied with great joy. You look at the Christmas story. We still celebrate the Christmas story, the birth of Jesus. Within all of this, Sarah wants Abraham to cast out Hagar and Ishmael. When you think of it, this reaction is a little bit sad. "So when the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the same day that Isaac was weaned, Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, scoffing. Therefore she said to Abraham, 'Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, namely Isaac.' And the matter was displeasing in Abraham's sight because of his son." Family politics are difficult, aren't they? And as Isaac was weaned and as he grew a little bit, some of the ancients say that children were not weaned until 12 years of age, and some say 5 years. So we're not exactly sure of the age, but reliable research indicates he was probably about 3. He was a kid. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar scoffing. This conflict meant the two sons were having a go at each other. And it's probably inevitable, even though they were about 13 years apart. Abram found it hard to agree with Sarah's complaint when he did not want to reject his son through Hagar, Ishmael. And notice too, the conflict came from Ishmael to Isaac. Ishmael was the one scoffing at Isaac. In Galatians 4:22-29, the Apostle Paul uses this conflict as an illustration of the conflict between those born of promise and those born of the flesh, or those born into knowing about Jesus and those not born that way. In Galatians 4, the Jewish legalists were troubled. The Galatians protested that they were children of Abraham and thus more blessed. Paul admitted they were the children of Abraham, but they were like Ishmael, not Isaac. The legalists claimed Abraham was their father. Paul asked who was their mother, Hagar or Sarah. Do you see where he was coming from with that? Ishmael was born of a slave and born according to the flesh. Isaac was born of a free woman and born according to the purpose. Even so, the legalists in Galatians chapter 4 promoted a relationship with God based on this concept of what family they were born into. The true gospel, grace, offers liberty in Jesus Christ in a way that is promised so that all who receive it, regardless of how they were born or what family they were born into. Even as Ishmael and his descendants have persecuted Isaac and his descendants, we should not be surprised that the modern day people who follow God, yet in a reliance on human strength and wisdom, do in fact persecute those who follow God in faith through the promise. Just think about the politics of today and you'll understand a little bit more about that. Verse 12-14 talks about God's instruction to Abraham. It says, "But God said to Abram, do not let it be displeasing in your sight because of the lad or because of your bondwoman. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice. For in Isaac your seed shall be called. Yet I will also make a nation of the son of the bondwoman, because he is your seed." So Abram rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water, and putting it on her shoulder, he gave it and the boy Hagar, and sent her away. Then she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. Mate, this sounds tough stuff. This sounds really, really hard. And yet God said, whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice. Perhaps Abraham didn't want to give up Ishmael because he considered, well, he was his son. Okay, he was his son. And I suppose in the back of his mind, he might have had a backup plan. I don't know. If something should happen to Isaac, there was always going to be Ishmael. But God didn't want to trust in the backup son or the backup plan, did he? God wanted Abraham to trust in him.